The Gemara in Megillah tells us that Ezra made a takana, he instituted that the klolas should be read right before Rosh Hashanah. Why? Tells us the Gemara, so that the year ends and the klolas end with it. And what a year of klolas we had in this previous year. Tosfos asks the obvious question. There's a problem, because the klolas are said in last week's parsha, Parshas Kisavai. Almost always, this week's parsha, Parshas Netzovim, is read right before Rosh Hashanah. So what does it mean that the klolas are read right before Rosh Hashanah? There's always Parshas Netzovim and Vayeilech in between. Answers Tosfos, because we don't want to read the klolas right before Rosh Hashanah. That's too close to home. So we have a break in between. I'd like to humbly suggest a different answer, and that is, we need this week's parsha as we enter Rosh Hashanah. Atem Netzovim Hayoim. You are standing here today. Every single one of us have to know our own worth. And if we have a pulse, it means the Rabbi Shalom wants and needs us in this world and loves us tremendously. Young yeshiva bochum are not the only ones that were deported and imprisoned in Siberia. In fact, the Russian army managed to get many high-ranking Lithuanian officials, many government officials, and even high-ranking officers in Siberia. And they took tremendous pride in demoralizing them. All of them had tremendous respect for the yeshiva bochum, and they would trust them because they knew that they could. One night, one of these yeshiva bochum in Siberia, Yankala, who eventually became Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky, the famous Maggid, woke up in the middle of the night. He hears a noise, he hears a rustling. He looks in the barrack and he sees that there's another one of the inmates taking something out of a paper bag. And he notices he takes out a uniform from the Lithuanian army, clearly a high-ranking officer. He puts on the uniform and he marches up and down for about 10 minutes. Then he takes off the uniform, puts it back in the paper bag, and goes to sleep. Yankala couldn't believe it. The next morning he goes over to the fellow, he says, "Tell me something. I saw what happened. What were you doing? What went on?" So the man confided into this yeshiva bacher and he said, "I'll tell you. I was a very high-ranking general in the Lithuanian army until they brought me over here. And the Russians use every opportunity they have to humiliate me. I need to remind myself who I really am. So every night I take out my uniform, I march up and down, and I look at the mirror and I see who I really am. It reminds me of my greatness." It's the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah. The Rabbi Shalom wants us to remember as we enter the Yom Hadin and we beg for our lives. Never forget who we are. We may do things throughout the year that we shouldn't do. People humiliate us, but let us never forget who we are. We are the greatest and most precious children of the Rabbi Shalom. Have an amazing Shabbos.
To listen to more by Rabbi Avi Wiesenfeld, visit